I want to be precise about when I first noticed it, because the timing matters more than anything else I'm going to tell you. It was a Tuesday. I know it was a Tuesday because I'd come home late from the grocery run I always do on Mondays, pushed back by a meeting that ran long. So Tuesday, 6:47 p.m. I remember looking at the clock on the microwave when I set the bags down because the number felt off, later than my body expected, even though it was only 47 minutes past my usual time. That feeling, that small wrongness in the chest. I should have paid more attention to what that feeling was trying to tell me. I've lived alone for 3 years. The apartment is a one-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building old enough to have radiators that knock in winter and a freight elevator that nobody uses. I work from home 4 days a week. My schedule is, or was, extremely consistent. Coffee at 7:10, shower at 7:35, desk by 8:15, lunch at 12:30, always something simple. A walk at 2, usually 20 minutes, sometimes 30. Back at the desk. Done by 6. Dinner. An hour of reading or television. Bed by 10:30. I'm not telling you this to bore you. I'm telling you this because the consistency is the whole thing. The consistency is what made it possible. The first anomaly wasn't frightening. It wasn't even interesting. I came out of the shower on a Wednesday morning and the bathroom door was open. I close the bathroom door when I shower. Not for privacy. I live alone. But because the steam fogs the mirror and I like to shave while I can still see my reflection. So I close the door. Always. Habit so deep it's basically autonomic. The door was open. Not wide open. Just slightly. Maybe 15 degrees off the frame. I thought draft. I must have not latched it properly. I shaved with a slightly fogged mirror and forgot about it by lunch. Thursday, same thing. Door open when I came out of the shower. Same angle. Approximately the same 15 degrees. Friday, I checked the latch before turning the water on. Pressed the door firmly into the frame. Heard the click. Showered. Came out. Open. Same angle. I checked the hinges. I looked for warping in the frame. I spent 20 minutes with a level. Everything was plumb. Everything was fine. The door simply did not stay closed when I showered. I made a note to call the super. I didn't call the super. I forgot. Or I thought I forgot. The next thing was smaller, which is why it took me longer to register it as a thing at all. My reading chair is in the corner of the living room, angled slightly toward the window. I bought it specifically for the angle. Afternoon light comes through the west-facing window around 3:30 and hits the chair in a way that makes reading feel like something designed for you. I'd positioned it carefully when I moved in. Measured, almost. Sometime in the second week of noticing things. I can't tell you the exact day. The chair was facing more directly at the window. Not dramatically. Maybe 5 degrees of rotation. Enough that the afternoon light came at a different part of my peripheral vision. Enough that it felt wrong in the way that a familiar room feels wrong in the dark. The shapes are correct, the distances are wrong. I rotated the chair back. I paid no particular attention to the number of degrees. 2 days later it had moved again. Same direction. Maybe slightly further this time. I began to think about who had access to my apartment. Maintenance had a key. The building manager. In 3 years I had let 2 people inside. A friend who'd helped me move a bookshelf, and a technician who'd replaced the HVAC filter. Neither recently. I changed my lock. New deadbolt, new chain. I told myself this was reasonable, not paranoid. Single person, living alone, things moving in an apartment nobody else should be entering. Reasonable. The chair continued to move. Here is what I should have understood at that point, and didn't. The chair wasn't being moved by someone entering. The chair was being adjusted. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. Someone moving your chair is random, or malicious, or accidental. Someone adjusting your chair is paying attention to you. I started keeping a log. I'm a systematic person, occupational habit, and the log felt like control. Date, time, observation, possible explanation. I kept it in a notebook I bought specifically for this purpose and left on my desk each night. By the 3rd week, the log had 31 entries. I'm going to tell you only the ones that changed how I understood what was happening. Entry 11. The coffee maker started brewing 4 minutes earlier than my scheduled time. I have it on a programmable timer. 7:10 has been my program time for 2 years. I watched it begin at 7:06 and assumed I'd accidentally adjusted it when cleaning. I set it back to 7:10. Entry 14. Coffee maker at 7:08. I had, on the previous 2 days, poured my first cup at approximately 7:08 rather than 7:10, because I'd been slightly more awake than usual. I set it back. I began making sure to pour my coffee at exactly 7:10. Entry 17. I overslept by 6 minutes. Came to the kitchen at 7:16. The coffee was hot. You understand what I'm saying. The coffee was hot at 7:16 because it had brewed at 7:06. 10 minutes of warmth in the carafe. The machine had anticipated the overshoot. Not the schedule I'd set. The schedule I'd actually kept. I unplugged the coffee maker. Entry 19. I woke at 7:10 and stood in the kitchen for a long time, watching the unplugged machine on the counter. I boiled water on the stove and made instant coffee and sat at the kitchen table and wrote in the log. It isn't watching my schedule. It's watching me. This is where I need to be careful about how I describe what I did next, because I don't want you to think I panicked. I didn't. Panic is a luxury that only exists when you believe the situation might still be containable. What I felt was something quieter and more focused, the way your body goes very still when you're trying to hear something you're not sure you heard. I began to change my routines deliberately, not randomly. Random was, I realized, the wrong approach. Random would only give it more data. What I needed was to establish a new routine that I could then monitor for adaptation. A controlled change, so that I could measure the response time. I moved my shower from 7:35 to 9 o'clock. I moved my lunch from 12:30 to 11:45. I stayed at my desk until 7:30 instead of 6 o'clock. I repositioned the chair against the opposite wall, where no afternoon light reached it, and I sat there anyway. For 4 days, nothing. The apartment was still. I slept reasonably well. I started to think about the word recalibrating and what it implied. On the 5th day, the bathroom door was open when I came out of my 9 o'clock shower. Same 15 degrees. I stood in the hallway with a towel around my waist, and I felt something I want to describe accurately. Not fear. Not yet. Something more like the feeling of being understood by something that has no business understanding you. The door had adjusted. Not to the old time. To the new time. It had updated. I moved the shower to 6 a.m. I told no one. I wrote it in the log, but I hid the log in the lining of my winter coat in the closet because I had begun to wonder about the log. 6 days at 6 a.m. Nothing. 7th day, door open. Same angle. I sat on the bathroom floor for a while after that. The tile was cold. I remember noticing the cold because it felt like information, my body's way of telling me I had been sitting there longer than I thought. I stopped showering. 3 days. I bathed with a washcloth at the kitchen sink, changing the time every day, no pattern, no consistency. I stopped using the coffee maker entirely. I ate at different times, different foods, standing at the counter instead of sitting at the table. I moved the chair to the bedroom and put a box of books where it had been. I slept in 2-hour intervals. For rotations across the night. I set the alarms for irregular times. 12:40, 2:55, 5:10, 7:30. I changed them nightly. The log grew harder to read because my handwriting had changed. I noticed this before I noticed most of the other things. The handwriting was shakier, more compressed, the letters closer together as though trying to take up less space. I want to tell you about the moment the rule broke, because that's the moment that changed everything. But I need you to understand what I thought the rule was first. I had come to believe that the rule was pattern recognition and anticipation. That whatever was learning my routines needed time, days, at minimum, to observe, adjust, and implement. That the window between my change and its adaptation was my safety margin. That if I changed often enough and irregularly enough, I could stay ahead of it. I believed this for approximately 3 weeks. Then I came home from a walk I had taken at a completely unplanned time, 3:40 p.m., having decided spontaneously to leave my desk, and the chair was positioned facing the door. Not the window, the door. The direction I had just come from. I had not sat in that chair in 11 days. I had never sat in it facing the door. There was no history for it to learn. There was no pattern for it to anticipate. It wasn't anticipating my patterns anymore. It was anticipating me. And then the earlier entries in the log reordered themselves in my memory. The coffee at 7:06. The 4-minute adjustment before I'd overslept. The bathroom door at the angle I would open it rather than the angle I'd left it. Not mimicry. Not learning. Prediction. Something more structural than routine. Something underneath the behavior. It had not been watching what I did. It had not been watching what I did. It had been watching what I was about to do. I have not been back to the apartment. I am writing this from my brother's house, 2 states away. I have slept 11 hours in the past 4 days, and I tell myself that is because of the stress, the travel, the disruption of everything familiar. I have been eating at different times each day, taking different routes between rooms, sitting in chairs I have never sat in before. Yesterday morning, I woke at 6:52 and came downstairs, and there was a mug on the counter near the coffee maker. My brother leaves for work at 6:30. He had been gone for 22 minutes. The mug had been placed at the position where I stand when I pour coffee, which I have done twice since arriving. Once at 8:15, once at 9:40. Not a consistent time. Not a visible pattern. The mug was there. I picked it up. I put it in the cabinet. I stood in the kitchen for a long time and tried to think about whether my brother could have left it there by accident, in a position coincidentally aligned with where I stand. I tried very hard to think that. I have been thinking about what it actually learns. Not the routines. I understand now that the routines are just the surface, the visible edge of something that goes much deeper. What it learns is the shape underneath the behavior, the biological rhythms, the hunger cycles, the way your body leans towards sleep at a particular hour regardless of whether you let it, the way your hands know where the light switch is before your eyes adjust, the way you breathe differently in rooms you feel safe in. These things don't change. You can shuffle the timing, rotate the furniture, abandon every deliberate habit you've ever built. But the body has its own schedule, older than routine, and that schedule does not care what you decide. I'm not sure how long I've been carrying this with me. I'm not sure when it began, whether it started in the apartment or before, something I brought with me when I moved in, something I've been generating without knowing it. I don't know if location matters. What I know is this. You've been sitting in the same position for most of the time you've been reading this. Your body has settled into it, made micro-adjustments, found the angle that works. And before you started reading, you were probably in a different position, in a different room, doing something that follows something else in a sequence so automatic you don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about it, but something else might. The next time a door is open that you don't remember leaving open, don't ask yourself whether you left it open. Ask yourself what angle it's at. Whether that's the angle you would have pushed it to, whether something new, before you reached it, exactly how far you'd need it to move. Then ask yourself how long you've been consistent enough to teach it that.